How did this over-the-top sci-fi action comedy become a timeless cult classic? Flying taxis, Ruby Rod with his signature shrieks, and one of the most iconic futures ever put on screen.
Leeloo Dallas Multipass.
The Fifth Element shouldn't have worked, but it did. From Luc Besson's wild imagination to the film's iconic designs and unforgettable characters, let's explore how this cosmic madness became pure movie magic. This is ElevenSlate and The Fifth Element Explained. It all started back in the distant 1970s. A young Luc Besson, the future famous director, was going through a rough time. His parents divorced, both started new families, and his beloved hobby, scuba diving, suddenly became off limits after an injury. Diving was something he'd picked up from his parents. Both were diving instructors. After the divorce, his father became a taxi driver, working long hours, often late into the night. Luc spent a lot of time alone, and his one escape was reading comic books. And not the kind you're probably thinking of. Not Spider-Man or Batman. In France, comics had a completely different flavor. They were full-fledged works of art. Bold sci-fi adventures like Valerian and Laureline, created by Jean-Claude Mézières. Those stories depicted strange, imaginative futures, brave and flawed heroes, beautiful women in revealing outfits, bizarre alien species, the perfect example of a classic space opera. Another major influence was Jean Giraud, better known as Mobius, a visionary artist who also helped design the original Alien for Ridley Scott. Under their influence, 16-year-old Luc Besson started writing his own cosmic adventure about a loser named Zaltman Bleros who wins a ticket to a luxury space resort only to meet an ancient being in the form of a beautiful young woman. From there came the adventure, the evil aliens, the romance, and the battle to save the universe from absolute evil. In time, this early idea evolved into the story we know today, the journey of taxi driver Korben Dallas to the paradise planet Floston in search of an alien weapon capable of defeating a cosmic shadow of death. Along the way, he falls for Leeloo, the so-called Fifth Element, a perfect being created to protect all life in the universe. While working on his other films, Besson couldn't get the Fifth Element out of his head. At first, he planned to turn it into a novel, but the deeper he got into filmmaking, the clearer his dream became, to turn this personal fantasy into a bright, spectacular sci-fi adventure. So the question was, how do you make a childhood dream come true?
Anybody else want to negotiate?
Every one of Besson's films was making decent money, and in the eyes of the studio, he was quickly becoming a synonym for box office success. So, in 1991, he decided to have a serious talk with Gaumont, one of France's biggest production companies, and pitched the idea for his next movie, a full-scale space opera with a $100 million budget, Hollywood stars in the leading roles, and a ton of cutting-edge computer graphics for its time. The most expensive movie ever attempted in French cinema. It's no surprise that between the first production meetings and the start of filming, 5 whole years would pass. Gaumont kept hesitating, pulling back funding, pausing pre-production, looking for co-investors, and trying to cut costs wherever possible. During that long wait, Besson made Léon, The Professional with Jean Reno, a massive success that cemented his reputation as a commercially reliable director. Columbia Pictures, delighted with Léon's performance, soon joined forces with Gaumont to co-produce his next big dream project. Once Léon became a hit, The Fifth Element finally moved into active development. Besson actually wrote a script for an entire trilogy, but after realizing how hard it was to secure financing for just one installment, he condensed the story into a single self-contained movie. One of the biggest challenges was, of course, the lead role. To attract worldwide attention, Besson needed a Hollywood name. His first instinct was to reunite with Jean Reno, but Reno was only starting to break into the international scene, too early for him to headline a $100 million epic. Ironically, Reno would go on to star in plenty of Hollywood productions later, and entirely miss out on The Fifth Element because of scheduling conflicts. It became Besson's first feature without his longtime collaborator. Another candidate was Mel Gibson, who seriously considered the part but ultimately turned it down. That's when Besson's attention shifted to Bruce Willis, a huge name that could bridge European cinema and American audiences. At that moment, Willis's career was wobbling. A few early 90s projects had flopped, and his once spotless image as a bankable action star was under threat. Besson waited for the perfect moment, when Willis would finally have some breathing room, and managed to convince him to sign on, even at a reduced fee. The actor understood the project's fragile financial state and agreed to help make it happen.
Take the mission.
The result? A classic action hero with a checkered past, solid combat skills, and a failed marriage. His wife left him for the family lawyer. You can tell somewhere in his ancestry there's a guy named McLean. For the role of the main villain, Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg, Besson didn't hesitate for a second. He called Gary Oldman. After Oldman's gloriously unhinged performance in Leon, the Professional, he had proven himself to be the perfect choice for any larger-than-life villain. Zorg, unlike Stansfield from Leon, is a cold-blooded businessman, perfectly willing to push the entire world to the brink of destruction if it means turning a profit. Funny detail. Throughout the whole film, the protagonist, Korben Dallas, and the antagonist Zorg never actually meet face-to-face. The closest they ever get is this one passing moment, and if you look carefully, you realize that Korben used to work for Zorg's company and was fired by him.
Fire 1 million.
But 500,000.
Technically, Zorg's the reason Korben lost his job, not the expired taxi driver's license. Let's be honest, he probably would have been laid off anyway. Oldman agreed to join the project almost immediately. After all, Besson had helped finance the actor's directorial debut, Nil by Mouth. As Gary said in multiple interviews, he simply felt he owed Besson a favor. Not only did he shoot The Fifth Element, he also threw himself into all the promotional tours and press junkets. Ironically, Oldman admits he can't stand the film. When people asked him, if you think it's bad, why is it so popular? He just shrugs and says, because we live in a crazy world.
Watch it all day, sweetie. It'll rot your brain.
So what makes The Fifth Element so irresistible? Let's find out. The setting can be summed up in one word: insane. It's the same kind of world as Leon, just 300 years later. That strange blend of cheerful, candy-colored New York and the dark cruelty hiding beneath its neon skin. Most of the action takes place in the year 2263, following former soldier turned reckless taxi driver Korben Dallas. Funny coincidence, around the same time Besson was developing The Fifth Element, he also wrote the screenplay for another French hit, Taxi, starring Sami Nasseri. Clearly, cars and speed had been on his mind for a while. One of the key reasons The Fifth Element became such a success is its visual uniqueness. The future here doesn't look like the typical cold, rainy, cyberpunk dystopia. It's bright, colorful, full of life. Even if crime lurks around every corner, the cops are useless, and the government is drowning in bureaucracy. There's still joy in this world. By the way, that mugger in the hallway, that's Matthew Kassovitz, well-known French actor and director. He later made Crimson Rivers with Jean Reno and Gothica with Halle Berry. That's another fun thing about The Fifth Element. It's not just a movie, it's a full-blown celebrity jamboree. Look close, you'll spot the rapper Tricky as Zorg's assistant, and comedian Lee Evans, who was rising fast in the 90s. Everyone wanted to appear in what was then the most expensive European movie ever made. Visually, Besson wanted to bring light into science fiction. He was tired of dark spaceship corridors and gloomy, overcast skies. He wanted to make the future look like the lavish illustrations from the comics he loved as a kid. For the costumes, he invited none other than Jean-Paul Gaultier, the world-famous fashion designer, who created more than 500 sketches, turning this space opera into a futuristic runway show.
Paradise! Ruby right at your service for 2 hours with Lusky Korben and the manager of the Super Green Hotel.
To design the sets, Besson called upon his childhood idols, Jean Giraud and Jean-Claude Messier. According to Messier, Besson told him, "I want to make a movie inspired by your art, and this time I actually want to pay you for it." That was a little jab at George Lucas, who had borrowed heavily from Valerian for Star Wars without giving any official credit. Ironically, that collaboration later led to a lawsuit over alleged plagiarism, but we'll get to that near the end. With Korben Dallas and Zorg sorted out, it was time to find the most important role, the Fifth Element herself. Or simply, Leeloo. To find a perfect actress, Besson personally reviewed hundreds of candidates before choosing Milla Jovovich, a young actress of Serbian-Ukrainian descent trying to break into Hollywood, known mostly for one starring role in Return to the Blue Lagoon. The Fifth Element would be her first major part.
Leeloo Dallas Multipass.
Besson was captivated by Jovovich's mix of grace, physicality, and genuine innocence, exactly what he needed to portray an ancient being with the soul of a curious child. In a way, Leeloo is like a cosmic version of Leon, emotionally underdeveloped but pure and empathetic. And considering that during filming Besson started a romantic relationship with Jovovich and later married her, it's safe to say he was drawn to more than just her acting skills. Together, they developed the divine language, an invented tongue of over 400 words. You couldn't exactly perform Hamlet in it, but it worked well enough for conversation. The two often switched to it on set, leaving everyone else completely confused. In one scene, Bruce Willis was deliberately not told what Leeloo was saying to him, which is why his confusion and surprise looked so authentic on screen. Leeloo is the ultimate weapon, created by an ancient alien race called the Mondashuans to stop an evil force that returns every 5,000 years. In the opening scene, set in 1914, they evacuate the sacred stones from Egypt, promising to come back when the shadow rises again.
In 300 years, when evil returns, so shall we.
Funny thing, if it's 300 years after 1914, that'd be 2214. But the movie clearly shows 2263 on the screen. When it comes to saving the universe, maybe precision wasn't the top priority. That opening also hides a little marketing trick. In the credits, you can see the name Luc Perry, the star of the hit teen series Beverly Hills 90210. His name appeared not just in the titles, but even on posters, just to lure young audiences. The result? He's on screen for maybe 3 minutes total.
Friends? Father, they've killed the professor. They're monsters.
To keep all these cosmic secrets under wraps, the order that worships the Mondashuans and the aliens themselves aren't shy about killing innocents. That's an important hint at one of the film's deeper messages. But before we get philosophical, let's talk about the other key characters. In the movie's present day, the sacred knowledge of the Mondashuans is guarded by Father Vito Cornelius, played by the great Ian Holm. Yes, Bilbo Baggins in The Lord of the Rings and the android Ash in the original Alien. Another brilliant British actor who could completely reinvent himself for every role.
Have a different theory to offer you, sir.
You have 20 seconds.
And as Luc Besson loves to do, Cornelius's key exposition speech lasts exactly 20 seconds. Besson is famously obsessed with timing. Notice something fun. Holm was in the first Alien. The bit part cop Mac McDonald shows up in Aliens by James Cameron, and the scientist Christopher Fairbank appeared in Alien 3. If Alien Resurrection had been out by then, someone from that cast probably would have wandered into The Fifth Element too. Speaking of Mac McDonald, he's the guy ordering fast food in this scene. So yes, Mac McDonald orders a Big Mac at McDonald's. Somebody call the tautology department.
Unit 47, we're on the way. As soon as we finish lunch.
And now we come to one of the most unforgettable characters in the entire movie, Ruby Rhod, played by comedian Chris Tucker. I think we can all agree, he absolutely steals the show.
All night long. All night long. All night.
His character was inspired by icons like Michael Jackson and Prince. Besson actually tried to cast Prince first, but the musician politely declined. That left two finalists, Chris Tucker and Jamie Foxx. Tucker got the part mainly because he was slimmer and fit the extravagant wardrobe better. It's wild to remember that in the very same year, 1997, Chris Tucker also appeared in Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown. Two completely different performances, both unforgettable. Through Ruby Rhod, Besson introduces us to the upper crust of his futuristic society, a cartoonish, over-the-top elite drenched in neon, ego, and noise. Remember, The Fifth Element is also a parody of our own world, a funhouse mirror version of reality. It exaggerates everything: celebrity culture, the obsession with image, the worship of entertainers. That's why Ruby Rhod is both a sex symbol and a walking circus act, and why he's treated with the same reverence as Baby Ray, a completely tone-deaf pop idol. It's Besson's sly way of saying, we create our idols, not because they're great, but because we need someone to adore. So how exactly does this world work? At the luxury space resort, we glimpse bickering ministers, pompous generals, even what looks like an emperor of something. The movie never spells out the political structure, but one thing's clear. Earth has erased its national borders. Now there's just one government, led by President Lindbergh. Humanity has also made contact with aliens, though, judging by the tone, Earthlings aren't thrilled about it. When the spaceport security realizes that some passengers are actually Mangalores, they don't shout, "Code Red, it's Mangalores!" They just mutter, "Aliens."
Aliens ahead, spread out.
We never really find out what happened between humans and the other alien races, but honestly, I'd watch an entire movie just about that conflict. This crazy world is so immersive, you just want to know more about it. Anyway, back to the Mangalores. Every good space opera needs a menacing alien species, and The Fifth Element has no shortage of those. The Mangalores are a race of battle-hardened warriors obsessed with violence and their own twisted sense of honor. These brutal mercenaries work for Zorg in exchange for weapons until he betrays them, turning them into a third chaotic faction. After filming The Fifth Element, the same creature effects techniques used for the Mangalores were recycled in Star Wars Episode 1 to create the Neimoidians, and Attack of the Clones clearly drew inspiration from Besson's film for its Coruscant chase scenes. The Mangalore design was fantastic, but notice the dark goggles? That wasn't fashion. It was simply too expensive to make realistic, moving eyes for every mask, so the crew hid the actors' faces behind tinted lenses. Practical movie magic. Still, the most memorable alien in the film is the diva Plava Laguna, played by Besson's then-partner Mai Wen. Here she is in Leon without the blue makeup. Of course, she didn't actually sing. The vocals came from Albanian opera singer Enva Mula. When composer Eric Serra handed her the sheet music, especially the rapid-fire section of the area, Mula told him flatly, "No human can hit those intervals that fast." In the end, the second half of the song had to be stitched together in post-production. And yet, the result is pure movie magic, the kind of moment you never forget. But what big movie ever gets made without a bit of drama behind the scenes? The Fifth Element is no exception. Let's get into it. Luc Besson started dating Milla Jovovich right during production, while still in a civil marriage with Mai Wen, the actress who played the diva. Mai Wen had given birth to his child when she was 16. Apparently, Besson decided it was time for someone older, which is ironic, because Mai Wen is actually about 6 months younger than Jovovich. She was 20 during the Fifth Element shoot. Knowing that, the scene where Mai Wen's character performs a heartbreaking aria and then dies, while Jovovich's Leeloo showcases her own perfection in battle, feels, well, let's say loaded. Maybe Besson was trying to say something there, consciously or not. But there's one moment connected to the diva that still raises questions every time I rewatch the film. You know the one I mean.
The stones, where are they?
In me.
How did the stones end up inside her? How did she get them in there? And how was she planning to get them out? So many questions, zero answers. But it doesn't really matter, because The Fifth Element isn't about logic, or realistic world building, or carefully motivated villains. I mean, who are the heroes actually fighting? A shadow. Pure evil. Why is it evil? Some tragic backstory? Some cosmic accident? Nope, it's just evil. And that's enough for an old-fashioned space opera. Of course, film scholars have spent years dissecting hidden meanings, subtext, and alleged social commentary. Some call the film anti-feminist, pointing out that nearly every female character is either a caricature, a sex symbol, or Leeloo herself, an artificial perfect being whose sole purpose is to save mankind. The diva, meanwhile, exists mainly to carry a sacred object inside her body, then die after delivering it. You could call that a metaphor for reproductive exploitation if you wanted to. Others see political satire and social allegory, which are in there, but definitely not front and center. Besson himself said that The Fifth Element is simply meant to be a bright, funny, emotional adventure movie, one that celebrates a single simple truth: life is sacred.
Ruby.
Sorry. Think it's gonna be okay?
Of course, life here means human life. The aliens can be blasted to pieces without moral consequence. That's why killing the professor in the opening scene is unforgivable, and the Mondashawan who does it dies immediately after. And that ultimate Fifth Element? It's not just Leeloo, it's love. The key ingredient that binds our world and the four elements together. The Fifth Element isn't a movie you analyze, it's a movie you enjoy looking at. It gives you something rare in science fiction: a bright, optimistic future, almost no realism, and a perfectly clear, classic battle between good and evil. And sometimes that's all you need. It's well acted, packed with charismatic performances, witty dialogue, fantastic set design, and the flawless cinematography of Besson's longtime collaborator Terry Arbogast. His work even won a special award at the Cannes Film Festival. The movie also scored an Oscar nomination for Best Sound Editing. Not bad at all. And fittingly, it premiered right there in Cannes. At the box office, The Fifth Element made $260 million, setting a record for French cinema that would stand until The Untouchables came along years later. And there were, of course, a couple of Golden Raspberry nominations for Chris Tucker and Milla Jovovich. But come on, the Razzies have never been particularly fair. Jovovich herself called Besson the first truly brilliant director I ever worked with, which is saying something, considering she'd already worked with Richard Attenborough, director of Gandhi, and Richard Linklater. But maybe she knew best. In any case, the film became a global cult hit and changed the lives of nearly everyone involved, except for a few people who were really unhappy about it and immediately went to court. After The Fifth Element's global success, not everyone was celebrating. Comic book legend John Mobius Giroux, co-creator of The Incal, and his longtime collaborator Alejandro Jodorowsky decided to sue Luc Besson for plagiarism. Maybe Giroux had hoped to be more deeply involved in production, not just contribute a few concept sketches, and felt left out of the profits. As for Jodorowsky, well, if you've seen any of his movies, you know it's nearly impossible to guess his motivations. In any case, the lawsuit created quite a stir, but the court ultimately ruled that The Fifth Element did not directly copy The Incal. Yes, the visual similarities are obvious. Flying cars, eccentric aliens, mystical artifacts of power. But that's the fine line between inspiration and imitation. If anything, The Fifth Element has even more in common with the sci-fi anthology Heavy Metal. In one of its short stories, a cab driver accidentally picks up a mysterious woman in trouble and ends up with a powerful artifact that could save or destroy the universe. And then there's this scene.
Hand over your cash.
Stupid asshole. Nobody touches Harry Canyon unless I want him to.
That's a very dangerous gun.
You know?
Maybe you better let me hang on to this one for you, huh?
Yeah, tell me that's not a straight homage. Still, the creators of Heavy Metal didn't sue. So maybe that's where the invisible border lies, between a respectful nod and outright theft. Oh, and for the record, that Jaws 7 poster you spot in the background, that actually proves something. It means Heavy Metal technically takes place before Back to the Future Part 2, where they were already showing Jaws 19. Anyway, stay tuned. We'll cover the entire Back to the Future franchise soon enough. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss it. In the end, The Fifth Element fulfilled Luc Besson's childhood dream and brought him worldwide fame. It's the kind of movie people still love to rewatch today, quoting every line by heart, smiling at every wild outfit, and feeling that same burst of joy as the first time they saw it. Because sometimes what audiences really want is simple: a bright, colorful adventure where love saves the day. Now click on the card to jump to the next video, or check out the themed playlist packed with deep dives into iconic franchises. Trust me, there's a lot of great stuff there. Thanks for watching. This is ElevenSlate.